Everybody, thanks for joining tonight's session. This one is a little bit different from the other sessions. I'm really excited for this one. For those of you who have already attended some of our other virtual fair panels, you'll know that our panels are alumni led. All the discussions are led by the experience of our students, and the majority of the students that have been speaking throughout this virtual fair are students who just participated in program this past summer, summer 2025, some of them summer 2024. They're mostly, or actually all of them are still in high school, and ambassadors in their schools to try to share their summer abroad experience and get more students to study abroad. Tonight's session is a little bit different though, and I'm very excited for this session. I think it's very appropriate that the first time we're having this session at the virtual fair is at our 10-year anniversary, where we have now officially been running our high school programs for 10 years. We started in 2015. And so tonight we have two alumni, Arturo and Sammy, who participated in our programs a bit longer than just this past summer ago, right? And so they'll talk more about their experience with CIEE and the long-term impact that their experience studying abroad had on their path toward college and their careers. So we're gonna get started. For those of you who have been in other panels, you probably recognize this slide. Those of you who are just learning about CIEE for the first time, why choose CIEE? Why what makes CIEE stand apart as a study abroad provider? First of all, we've been doing this for 75 plus years. So I said that it's our 10th anniversary for high school programs, but we've been sending college students and teachers abroad for much longer. CIE was actually founded right after World War II and has been promoting cultural exchange since then. Every year we support over 40,000 students. That is across all of our departments. That is with students coming from across the globe to study in the US, American students going to study across the globe. This is high school and college teaching. We are a nonprofit organization. So we are goal driven, right? Our goal when the organization was created in the aftermath of World War II was the idea that with more cultural understanding will come peace. And so that is our mission, and that what drives CIEE. And we administer the largest scholarship fund for US high school students. So we had a session last night about scholarships. We will have another one Thursday night if you want to check it out. We award over $7 million a year for our summer programs for high school students to be able to fund this experience that is really unique and something that we want to see more American high school students do. At this point, only 2 to 3% of American high school students study abroad. And so talking about percentages, I just want to give you guys all a taste of long-term effects of our program. This data was taken from last year's alumni survey that we send out to about 5,000, I would say, 5,000 alumni per year that we send the survey out to. And our results came back that 97% of our respondents were enrolled in a college degree program last year, right? So they are sent to students that graduated high school 1 year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, right? And so 97% of them were enrolled in a college degree program. 96% say that their experience studying abroad with CIEE made a lasting impression on their lives. 91% say that it positioned them to better relate to people that have different worldviews than them, different perspectives. It helps them become more empathetic and more open people. And 81% say that the experience helped them with their college applications. And I know that for high school students, that is at the forefront of a lot of your minds. Yes, you want this amazing experience of study abroad, but I know that for many of you, it is a stepping stone to, be better positioned when college application time comes. And so 81% of our respondents said that they do believe that this experience had a positive impact when it came time for the college process. So all of these amazing benefits, all of the ways, all of these great impacts that CIEE and that study abroad has had on our alumni's lives, where can you go, right, to have these experiences? We have over 100 programs at CIEE, 40 cities across the world that you can choose from. And I firmly believe that in any one of these cities, whatever city you choose, whatever program you choose, you're gonna have those same positive effects, right? So really look at what are your passions? What drives you? Are you more interested in language and culture, in a topic? Is there a country that you really want to live in? Or is there, do you really want to live in Japan and learn Japanese and develop your Japanese skills? Or maybe you just know that you want to study engineering and you can look at the different places that you can study engineering across the world. So we have amazing opportunities for everybody. There's something for everybody with CIEE. And the reason I say that I believe no matter what city you go to and what program you choose, you will have these positive experiences and these positive impacts is because all of our programs are designed with the same mission, with the same values, and with the same standards in mind. And biggest driver for CIEE when we are designing programs is making sure that our students are guaranteed what we call our 3S, our 3 pillars of CIEE: fun, friends, and future, right? This is what high school students want, and this is what you get from CIEE programs. The fun, that's self-explanatory, right? You're in a new country, you're in a new city, you're discovering things every day, you're doing all of these cultural activities, going kayaking, building robots, having cooking classes, you're getting free time to explore. The fun is self-explanatory. Friends, I believe, and I think that Arturo and Sammy can talk about this, but when I work primarily with student alumni, and they all talk about their friends that they created, their friendships that they created while studying abroad. And these are friends that are from across the world, but also from across the country. One of the great things that I always say about CIEE that is really amazing about, the way that our program works and our cohorts is that students are discovering different cultures across the world. They're discovering new things about the place that they're studying in. They're making friends in those places, but they're also discovering so much about the US, and they're making friends from across the US and building strong relationships. And they're lifelong connections. I was a program leader 4 years ago in Lisbon, and I can tell you that the students that I worked with are still friends. I am still following all of them on Instagram. They all still follow me, and they all still follow each other, and they're each other's #1 hype person. I always see them commenting on each other, talking about how proud they are of each other. And then future. We give college credits, right? Our language programs, you can earn college credits. If you get those college credits or not, if you will elect to do a program that does not have college credits, no matter what, you're going to stand out on your college applications. Only 2 to 3% of high school students study abroad, which means that if you do, that's going to look exceptional to any college admissions officer, right? Because it shows that you are independent, it shows that you are driven, and it shows that you can live alone on a campus away from your parents and that you've already done something similar. I mean, it's a great place to start exploring a career and developing skills for a career, especially if you choose a topic program. So with all of that said, um, I just want to remind you of some dates before I pass over the mic to Arturo. But for our summer programs, I want to remind you all that we do work on a rolling admissions basis. But if you apply by December 1st, so maybe a week and a half, what is that? Yeah, a couple weeks. Apply by December 1st, and you will be entered into our raffle to win a free flight. And December 1st, we will also have an early decision deadline for scholarships. So that's an important date to keep in mind to strive to get your application in by for some of these benefits. In any other case, our final scholarship deadline is January 21st, and scholarship announcements will come out in February. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Arturo. If you can tell me a little bit about your experience, then we'll open it up for some questions and answers.
That sounds great. Thank you, Brianna. Hi, everyone. My name is Arturo, and I studied abroad in Madrid the summer of 2015. And I really wanted to study abroad because I wanted to improve my Spanish. And then, secondly, because I was really fond of how immersive the CIE program was. Instead of living in dormitories or a hotel, we got to live with host families. And my host mother was very great at having dinner with us, making very culturally relevant food that you would find in Madrid and Spain, like paella, croquettes, gazpacho. All that was really great and aided the experience. Um, I think the coursework was really geared towards what we were doing and what we could see in the city, something that I appreciated a lot from my class, which you could see on the right hand slides. Our professors really taught us a lot about art history and things that we could see in the city. So I remember having a whole lesson on the Guernica, and then being able to go to the Reina Sofia in Madrid and seeing that in person was a really awesome experience. Some other great experiences I remember were all the special events we did. So another thing we did up in that top right photo is we took a flamenco class. It was really cool, not only hearing the music, but actually being able to do some of the steps ourselves. Um, Beyond that, we also did some excursions outside of Madrid. So the two photos you see on the left hand side are when we went to Segovia. And that was really awesome because we got the nature side of it by going kayaking. But then we also visited the city and saw the Roman aqueduct and a lot of the cultural heritage in the city. So I thought that was really awesome. The two center photos are a trip we did with our host mom. She was going to her hometown near Burgos, around 2 hours away from Madrid, and she invited me and my roommate if we wanted to go. And we said, yeah, that sounds amazing. So we got to see a little bit about where she grew up, meet some of her friends and family. And I remember one night specifically, they had a social gathering and we met a lot of her family and friends, and they just like all broke out into song and dance at one point. I thought it was really special. So I think these are all things that make study abroad experience with CIE very fruitful. We can go to the next slide. The photo on the left hand side was a little bittersweet. That was me saying goodbye to my host mom when I was leaving my program. I ended up graduating high school and I knew I wanted to go into a college that had a worldview and study abroad options. So I ended up enrolling at Middlebury College, small liberal arts college in Middlebury, Vermont. And they have a range of study abroad options and a lot of language programs. So I enrolled into Italian, took that my 4 years, and then during my junior year, I was able to study abroad in Ferrara, Italy. And I think CIE prepared me really well because Middlebury study abroad programs are also very immersive. You don't live in dormitories or hotels. In my situation, I was living in an apartment with four other Italian roommates. So it really helped, I think, getting that immersive experience with CIE, and it prepared me in the study abroad experience I had. What's great about study abroad in college is you have a lot of independence as well. So during the winter break of 2019, when I was studying abroad, I connected with one of my friends that also did the CIEE Madrid program with me, and we thought about meeting up in Madrid for a reunion trip. So we ended up making it happen, and we thought it would be really awesome to reconnect with our host families. So I remember me and him met up his host mom at a bar, caught up, and then with my host mom, I reached out, and it turned out that my roommate was also in Madrid at the same time that I was in Madrid. So we all reconnected for a dinner. So that's that photo on the right hand side. So you really never know where these connections will take you. And I think Brianna made such a good point that you really make lifelong friends. I am still really close with a lot of the friends I made on the program. Actually, just went to Peru earlier this year to meet up with one of my friends that is now a diplomat in Peru for the United States. So I really appreciate all the connections that I made from my CIE program. Since graduating college, I majored in architectural studies and minored in Italian. And immediately after, I was associate project manager for real estate marketing. And it was really great getting my introduction to architecture in Madrid and then following it through in college and then having that experience right afterwards. Since then, I have pivoted and now I am in sports marketing, but we work with a lot of global brands like Continental Tires, Lamborghini, and I think it really helps getting that world perspective that we initially received via the CIEE program. So I think my experience was very fruitful, and I'm really happy with where I am now. So that's just a little bit about my experience and how study abroad has changed me.
Amazing. Thank you, Arturo. Sammy, I'm gonna stop sharing and pass it over to you.
Sounds good to me. Thank you so much. Let's see, I'll send the request here. Everyone start typing away your questions for Arturo. Okay. Present mode. Hey y'all, my name is Sammy Walker Herrera. I'm so happy to be connecting with y'all through the CA experience. And I'm kind of zooming in where we're at now and what my experience in studying abroad with CIEE was. So I'm an executive coach. I do public speaking training as well as ADHD coaching, and I focus quite a bit on helping executive level leaders, inspiring leaders like students like yourselves in building long-term confidence. And when I tell people about what I do, oftentimes they wonder, oh my gosh, Sammy, how did you build your own confidence? How were you supporting yourself in learning to speak in public or connecting with other people from various cultures? And I have to say, my study abroad experience was one of those fundamental experiences that helped me get to where I am today. I studied abroad in summer 2013 in Alcalá de Henares, also in Spain, which is just about 30 minutes train south of Madrid. So not too far off from you, Arturo, just a couple of years off. Let's just say that. I studied abroad after my first year of college. I was enrolled at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. And when I decided that I wanted to have a study abroad experience, I had to look at what my academic calendar looked like. And I realized studying abroad earlier on in my college career was something that was going to support me significantly with my studies, especially since one of my majors was in Spanish. I was a bit nervous though. When I went and studied abroad, I realized that there were groups of students who came from the same college. So you'd have like 13 students from Slippery Rock here, 12 students from Indiana University, but I was the one student from Carnegie Mellon, and I was also the youngest person in the group since many of the folks studying abroad were in juniors and seniors. So these were a few things that I was carrying with me as I was coming to this experience. Never having been outside of the US, Spanish being my second language a little bit since I came from Texas. I'm also Mexican American, but not feeling super confident with it, and wondering how can I feel independent while being in a completely new country, a new context, and also just meeting everyone in this new experience. One thing you'll see here in the left-hand photo, those are a bunch of the roses that are in front of the university. the Universidad de Alcalá de Henares. Absolutely beautiful. Every time I think about this experience, I always go back to this photo as one that really solidifies not only the growth that I felt in my own experience, but the growth that I saw from so many other folks who joined me for those 2 months. Living in Spain at first was a bit tricky. I'd only been used to living in the United States. I'd only been used to expecting there to be peanut butter in the supermarkets, and that's not common in Spain. Sue me. Getting used to the metros. I remember one time, a group of my friends, we were a bit more of the nerdy friends when it came to our study abroad experience, would be on the trains to Madrid, and we would challenge ourselves as a group of 4 that we would stay speaking Spanish the entire day, no matter what we were talking about, checking in on each other. And I realized from that experience that your experience is what you decide to make of it. I knew of others who they would only practice Spanish in the classes, or they only practice Spanish with their host families, but immersion is also how much you choose to have an immersive experience. That also means you're experiencing challenge by choice. But oftentimes coming through that challenge, you're able to come out a new person and with a new global context as well. Living in Spain at first was challenging, but I really had to lean on my community. Right here in the left are many of the folks that I had spent time with. The program was split up to a June month, a July month, or both months. I decided to do both, and so I got to meet new people each month and develop closer ties with folks who were there for both months as well. I was close to not only my host family, but also our hosts, our tour guides as well throughout Spain, our professors. I was able to take 4 classes and really not only build up my language skills, but build up a lot of history experience. I got to watch like 8 different films that about historical moments in Spanish history, which was super interesting. And right here, on the right, you'll see a bowl of cherries that I picked with my host mom and at her house, and a couple of recipes that I translated to Spanish that I brought from my own home. I realized too that a big part of cultural exchange isn't just what you get, but it's also what you give. And host families often choose to bring in the students from all over the world because they also want to learn, they also want to grow, and they also want to experience that exchange. So know that even when you're studying abroad, that you are also giving by sharing your own perspective. Building this community is what helped me navigate some of the stresses and lack of confidence I was feeling at first in this new experience. And I realized that as I was learning Spanish, as I was feeling more confident in my own shoes, that I didn't have to look at being younger or being quote unquote alone as a negative thing, but actually something that was really freeing and allowed me to take charge of the experience as I was part of it. Since then, it's a time jump here, I've been able to build my confidence in a number of other ways as well, like improv comedy, Latin dance, and both of these hobbies have quite a bit of a global perspective to it, especially the people who decide to join you on the improv stage with different references and languages that you learn. And with Latin dance, especially at Carnegie Mellon, which ended up being my undergraduate institution, getting to connect with other folks through a cultural experience, a language experience, and sharing something that transcends language as well. In my career now, I recently actually quit my job at Carnegie Mellon as a career consultant to go full-time in my business, Speak Y'all. I'm a certified career services provider, which is a fancy way of saying I help students better understand how to tell their stories when they're networking and they're interviewing. And I'm a professional ADHD coach. So I help ADHDers wrestle all of those ideas that are floating out in their mind so that they can have a focus and they can have an impact. I feel that being part of the program for CIE, that's just what we call it in Spanish, so I'm just going to stay with that, helped me decide how to feel confident. Confidence often is that decision, and so you have to take that and hold it with your both hands. Thank you so much. We're not done here. We definitely have questions as well, but if you have questions after this presentation, that is my email.
Amazing. Thank you so much to both of you. So my first question would be, what were some of your fears and hesitations before you studied abroad, and how did you overcome those?
Arturo's first.
Mine were definitely, how my relationship to my host parent was going to be, just because I'm so used to, at that point, I was just living with my parents. I had never lived with anyone else. So that was a new experience for me. And then also, I think just living in a new city was going to be different. Luckily, I'm from Chicago, so I was used to getting on the train, getting on the bus at an early age, but still being in Madrid, you would have to get used to a whole new system. So I was kind of anxious about riding the metro and getting used to my directions around the city. But I think having that good group of community, like Sammy mentioned, is so important to help you feel a lot more comfortable with these. And I think host parents understand that you're learning a new language as well, so they're very helpful to make you feel at ease as well.
Yeah, I'll say one of my hesitations was even just a sense of feeling different than the community that I came into the experience with. For example, being a bit younger and being just generally more of a homebody than someone who goes out. I was wondering if that would put me in a social position to be less connected with folks, or I was wondering what safety could look like going out on my own. But I actually was able to develop a very close relationship with my host family because I was there very often. I felt very comfortable cooking and watching TV and listening to the news. I have to say my favorite thing that we would do is when we would eat dinner at 10 p.m. because that was very common in Spain. We'd watch TV at the same time and they would explain what was going on in the cultural, like what was going on in their world and what they were experiencing. And I was able to ask a lot of questions. We're able to connect very deeply. And so that hesitation of like, oh my gosh, am I not going to be able to connect? Yeah, maybe I didn't always have the most connections with my classmates, but we had class, so that was easy. I found like connecting with my host family was way more important and way more educational for me.
So that relates, both of you touched to this, to Tina's question in the question and answer. So were there any times that you felt like language barriers um, impeded your ability to bond with your host parent? Or did it affect it? Did it impact it in any way?
I think at first there is like that hesitation of like you learning the language and then also meeting someone new. So I think there is some hesitation in the beginning, but I think as you get close to each other and get to know each other more, I think it makes the connection a lot better with your host parent. So I think it just kind of takes time as well.
Mm. I feel like for me, since the host family I'd stayed with had hosted so many students over a number of years, that freed me from feeling as self-conscious because there were so many students with varied experiences in Spanish. I also have to say the barrier itself, not just language, but also cultural, sometimes was just plain funny. So, as I mentioned, I'm from Texas, I'm Mexican American, and we call this, so in English we call it a ponytail. In Mexico we call it a chongo. So I was asking my host mom if she can put my hair up in a chongo, and she was like, "What is that?" And I learned that in other parts of the world, including Spain, the word is coleta for the ponytail. And after we talked about it, she was like, "Oh my gosh, chongo is such an ugly word." And I'm like, "Hey, it was just really funny to laugh and learn some new words between each other."
Yeah. I think there's also something about the vulnerability of it that actually helps you bond more, right? The fact that you're putting yourselves out of your comfort zone, right? And
Mhm.
helps you guys form a mutual appreciation of each other. Um, how would you say, and Sammy, I know you went after your freshman year in college, but you
Mm.
still went on very early in your college career. How would you guys say that studying abroad prepared you for college, if it did in any way?
Yeah, mind if I go first, Arturo?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. One thing I'll say is it very much accelerated my major in Hispanic studies. After my summer abroad, my first semester, sophomore year, I skipped a 300 level class, and then in my spring I was taking a 400 level class. I was a sophomore taking a class that master's level students were in. And so not only accelerated my classes, but I was also able to have very in-depth experiences with language even into junior and senior year. So when I was a junior, I took a class called Internship in Clinical Psychology. And part of the reason I even got my placement with the psychiatric hospital I was working with was because I could speak Spanish and they needed someone to help translate a cognitive behavioral therapy manual from English to Spanish. I would not have been able to do that if my Spanish skills hadn't been advanced so early in my college career.
Awesome. Arturo, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think a couple points come to mind. I think the application for the CIE study abroad program and the scholarship that I applied for did remind me a lot of the college application process in and of itself. So I think it did kind of help having that additional experience and learning how to begin crafting my own story, my own personal statement for college, especially with the experience I gained from study abroad. Um, and for me, I was really fascinated by the architecture in Madrid, art and architecture. And I think I carried that with me through Middlebury as I was on an architectural studies track and minored in Italian, studied abroad in Italy for the art and the architecture. So I think it really helped me zone in on what my interests were for college and my major.
So that kind of leads me to the next question. If you guys can elaborate on how your experience study abroad influenced your career goals and your career decisions and interests, and if you notice that there are any skills that you use in your day-to-day life now as professionals that you learned while you were studying abroad. Or developed, or really honed in on any skills that came about around that time.
Happy to
Um,
go first here.
yeah.
Yeah. So my double major, again, was psychology and Hispanic studies. And a lot of time people assume that it's my psychology major that moved me into working with people and helping people train and improve and whatnot. And it was all right. It was a good help. It was very generalist. Time and time again, I look back at my Hispanic studies major and the different types of experiences I had related to, oh, cats, the global connection much more in depth because of the communication component. When we're translating, when we're learning from others, there's so many listening skills, let alone speaking skills that we're gaining. And when you're a coach, when you're training, when you're teaching, when you're supporting others, these listening skills are so important, but also the skills of summarizing, recapping, letting people know through your own words that you understand them. And having not only a global experience, but having these language skills really builds a lot more of that empathy of, hey, I'm not only trying to get myself understood, but other people want to know that you understand them. How do I communicate that I understand them? And that often can build some of that self-awareness that help people grow and learn.
Arturo?
On my end, I was going to say, I think improving my Spanish experience really helped my transition learn Italian. Like being a Romance language, it made that pathway a little easier for me to pick it up a little quicker and get the credits I needed to study abroad for my entire junior year. So I'm really grateful for that. And something else related to my career was at my previous role, working in real estate marketing. They had a need for a Spanish speaking project manager to work with a client that was in Argentina. And at the time, I was the only Spanish speaking project manager. So I got looped into that project. And I'm really grateful I did because it taught me like a whole new Spanish as well, given that Argentinian Spanish and the accent is so different. So I'm really grateful for my Spanish taking me on to those career opportunities as well.
Amazing. So what advice would the two of you give to students who are considering studying abroad?
I think definitely think of the lifelong connections that you'll make. I think that's probably my favorite thing that I take away is just the community that I have that I still reach out to on a regular basis, see here in the city, or make the effort to go see them where they're at, is really special to me. And just have fun with it. Like there are so many fun opportunities in the classroom that you'll have, but then also outside exploring on your own, having that newfound independence that will really give you a leg up in college.
I would say one of the core things that I gained that I'm able to apply now, much later on, since the experience in 2013, is having a new perspective. And what I mean by that is often when we're in a new environment, things are so novel and we're seeing things from a completely new lens. We're able to be much more mindful and in the moment. But these are skills that we can actually use every single day. I can turn on the perspective. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and say, hey, what if I was a tourist here? How can I see my daily routine through new eyes? And that's hard to do when you haven't had an experience where it is completely different. It is um again, not just filtered by language, but filtered by the culture that you're in. Pittsburgh has a culture compared to other cities in the US. And so when you're able to gain more of that general appreciation and mindfulness, it makes your everyday so much more peaceful and so much more meaningful.
And do you have any advice for how students can use their study abroad experience to stand out on their college applications or their job interviews as they move forward into the future?
Well, I'm glad you asked because I'm a career consultant and I teach students how to do this all the time. So
Yeah.
starting off with the college applications, one thing that you'll want to do is include that experience in your resume. So under the education section, you would include the time that you were abroad, the period, what you were studying, maybe the names of courses you were in, for example. If you were able to be part of a club or be part of a project or have something that transfers to what you're doing next, you can build that out as well on your resume. You also want to think about your storytelling skills. Often college applications, they'll ask you about situations that helped you grow, situations that made you grow. And this experience might itself be that experience that you want to highlight. That can definitely be very helpful as well. Moving forward, a part of it is building those reflection skills. Hey, can I talk about this in an interview? How might I talk about this in an interview? So preparing some of those basic interview questions, sometimes they're about successes or failures, strengths, weaknesses. You're going to learn a lot about yourself studying abroad, and definitely these experiences can be ones that you talk about.
I definitely echo like putting it on your applications and your resume. I think it's also like such a great conversation starter. So like when you're applying to certain roles or internships, someone could see that and maybe they didn't do that program, but maybe they visited that place and it just like it instantly brings them like good thoughts to them and they may be curious to learn more about your experience. So I think that is such a good point to make. And when you do study abroad, really think about what your passions are or what is at least guiding you through the city. Like, what do you want to do? And then maybe think about how that can connect to what your major or what your career can be down the line. Because I think there will be a correlation there.
Okay. Thank you both so much. Do we have any more questions from the audience? I feel like you guys have touched on so much and given so much knowledge and advice. But if the audience has any more questions, we'll be happy to take them.
Yeah, well, we're global navigators, so.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, if not, thank you all for joining, and thank you so much again to Arturo and to Sammy. Amazing, amazing talk. I really loved hearing about your experiences and everything that you've done since you studied abroad with CIEE and the 8 years or the 10 years or however many years since you studied abroad. I love to see the path that you have taken. I think it's very inspiring and such a good example for our students to see, you know, where life can take them 10 years from now that they might not have even imagined because they haven't studied abroad yet. Right? So thank you both for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Good night. Don't forget, everybody in attendance, to join for more sessions. We have still 2 more days of our virtual fair. So we'd love to see you at more of our panels to answer any questions that you still have. So thank you all and have a great night.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Take care, y'all.